Hello, it's me, Lorenzo Buttram Hubbard. Hashtag the Gay Socialite. Hashtag I'm Lorenzo Bitch. Hashtag the Frugal Socialite. Hashtag why live anywhere else. And today, as promised, I decided that I'm going to talk to you about this subject that seems to, dig into everybody's skin. And it's part of hanging out. It's part of being fabulous. And it's part of just being an ordinary person. It doesn't matter if you're in Miami or if you're in some other city. Tipping. Yes, I'm going to talk about that fabulous thing called tipping. And the reason I'm going to talk about it is because I hang out everywhere. And one of the things that people like about me is that, as you know, I'm an architectural interior designer, and I design nightclubs and I design entertainment venues. So I'm someone who's usually very close to ownership and management. But I pride myself in also making sure that I am very close with the people who work and serve and make my experience wonderful no matter where I go. And I also know a lot of these same people in different places if I'm hanging out socially and they show up and we're happy to see one another. So of course I know all the different sides of this conversation, from the consumer side, which would be myself, my friends, and other people. And I also know it from the management side, and I also know it from the server side. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So here in Miami, it's a little bit different. So when I talk about tipping, it's going to be a little bit different depending on where you're from. Because if you're from a smaller town, if you're from some place maybe someplace I've never been, then tipping is maybe traditionally 15% or whatever, and you just pay your tip and that's it. I've had the opportunity to live in different countries, and so tipping is sometimes it's 5%, 10%. It depends on where you are, but mostly people from the United States are accustomed to 15% now, up to 18%, 20%, especially in a city like Miami. What happens here in Miami that is so unique, and we'll say that, and it causes a lot of people, even people I know who are worth millions, and then people who aren't, is this expectation of tipping. Tipping is supposed to be something that you do to reward your server for excellent service. Here, they already add 18% on top of your bill. In most places, it doesn't matter what kind of service they gave you. They already added the 18%, girl, if you got good service or not. Now, some of the nicer places where I go, and I'm not going to call different places out. You guys want to know where I go, just go check me out on Instagram or my website. But some of the places that I go, the servers, say you go and you spend $500 and they add 20% on top of your bill, which is $100, okay? The server expects you to leave them something extra because they gave you good service over that 20%. So they've already taken your $500 bill up to $600, but the server expects you to leave them another 20%, which means $700 or $600 or whatever. But they expect some type of tip to be left after and over and beyond that 20% that was already added to your bill. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to put myself in the category of I call bullshit. I'm sorry. If you have already added 18%, 20% on top of my bill, I'm not leaving anything else unless I ask you for something special. Let's take, for example, it's a birthday, and I brought my mother, I brought my sister, I brought whomever, and it was their birthday, and I gave you a birthday cake, and I asked you to bring it out and bring out candles and blah, blah. Absolutely, I'm gonna leave you an extra tip for that, because that was over and beyond the service that you were supposed to provide. That was asking you to do something extra as a server. If it's an anniversary and I ask you at a certain time to bring a bottle of champagne, whatever, then I can see where you would ask your server to bring, or you could ask you would be required, or you would feel like you want to give your server something over and beyond that 20%. Now, I'm going to be fair, and now I'm going to tell you the argument, because I've had this argument with people in the industry face to face. The argument that they have is that 18% that you are tipping, or that is added to your check, is not actually going to them. That 18% is actually written as a service charge. And a certain percentage of that is going to them, and a certain percentage is going to the actual running of the restaurant. I call bullshit again. I'm sorry. I do not think that I understand that they've changed it. Notice what I said. It says service charge. So check out your bill and notice how many times it does not say propina or gratuity. It says service charge. So what is happening is that the restaurant or wherever you're going is actually charging you is actually taking that, and that's not considered the tip that you're giving your server. So to be fair to the servers, I want to give their side of the argument as well, is that 18% that you think is going to them is not actually going to them. But I have to say, that's not my fault. That's not my fault. That's not my fault. That's not my fault. That is something that has to happen between management and the servers, but I, as a consumer, have nothing to do with that. And they need to figure that out. I do not personally feel that it is fair. Maybe that's why it went from 15 to 18. And so now that 15%, I don't know what the percentage is from what I've heard, 3 or 4% goes to the house, and then the rest goes to the server. And that changes depending on where you are. That percentage changes. Now, here in Miami, what's unique, and I'm going to talk about cheap ass people. That's who I'm going to talk about right now. It is unfortunate that in a city like Miami, you have to put that 18% there. Because if you don't put it, there are some cheap ass people who will not tip anything. They will actually come to a really nice place, or they would sit down at a bar. They will actually run up a bill that's $100, $200, $300, $500, $1,000, whatever, and will not leave a tip, or will leave a $10 tip on a $500 bill. Hello, if you cannot afford to tip, you should have kept your ass at home. That's how I feel. And if you have a problem with it, girl, you can tell me about that when you see me in public. Hello. But right now, what I'm telling you, if you cannot afford to tip the people that are making sure that you have a nice time, then you shouldn't be out. And keep in mind, there are a lot of places that do not add a tip on top of your bill. But I'm talking about the places that do. Now, an also unique experience here, which would probably happen in a lot of cities like Miami, LA, New York, places like that, DC, is when you have a lot of celebrities and a lot of VIPs. And so I'm gonna be honest, a lot of places that I go, I'm a VIP. A lot of VIPs don't pay for a lot to drink or to eat. So if I go somewhere, for example, and I'm drinking for free, I'm eating for free, then I should leave a very generous tip for the people who have made sure that my service is amazing. We have celebrities here, and I'm not gonna call you out by name, but you know who you are. We have celebrities here who actually are comped in very nice places, and they will actually run up a bill for $1,000, $2,000 because they've comped them $1,000, $2,000 because they wanted to have that celebrity there. And then they will leave, when they get ready to leave, $100 tip. Hello, you just sat there and ran up a $2,000 bill drinking champagne and and whatever else you were drinking and consuming, whatever else you were consuming and eating good, and you were there for a few hours, and you leave $100 tip on a $2,000 bill. Hello, and you're worth millions. Hello again. I think that there's a difference between being frugal and being cheap. Now, I've lived in some places, and I've lived in some countries, and there are people who are frugal and there are people who are cheap. Frugal is when you are, I'll give you an example for me. Frugal is just someone who watches their money. They don't just go out throwing their money around. They pay attention to what they're spending. That's a frugal person. And a frugal person could be someone who has a lot of money, and a frugal person could be someone who can be of normal income. A cheap person is someone who knows the value of something and is always trying to get it for less and does not want to pay for something even though they know it's worth something. That's like, you guys know what I do for a living. I cannot tell you how many times I encounter cheap ass people, and no, I will not work for them, because if you cannot pay me what I'm worth, then I am not going to design for you. My talent costs money. Hello. So I'm going to say the same thing for the people who work in the industry. If you cannot afford to really to tip, if you cannot afford to enjoy, you can afford to enjoy the experience because you should have already known or checked out what it costs to have a good time wherever you're going before you got there. But if you can't afford to actually tie a bow on that experience, and what I mean by tie a bow is meaning tip, then you shouldn't be there. But at the same time, I don't think that you should be abused by having to put 2 damn bows on that experience and having to tip 2 times. You get what I'm saying? So the point of my message tonight was to, especially for people who live in major metropolitan cities, and or major, and not just here in the United States, even outside the United States, because we're the people who actually are getting hit with this the most, this whole tipping experience and feeling abused and feeling beat down by the tips, or even that look. You know that look? Like when you go someplace and you leave and the bill, they bring the bill, you put your card there and you have the opportunity, because on your bill it says service charge, and then under service charge it says additional gratuity. Okay, first of all, let me tell you something. I don't know what school these people went to, but if the first 18% was called a service charge, and then the second one is called additional gratuity, would that have made the first thing actually gratuity? How can it be additional gratuity if the first thing was not gratuity? I'm confused. Can you? Okay. So I put a line right through that if I'm not getting anything special, and then I just total it out. But there are places that you go that you will get that side eye from the server because they noticed that you did not leave them anything extra. So I say to all of you servers out there, people are not required to leave you anything extra. And a tip is something that people are leaving you based on the service you render. So if we're all giving you 18, 20, or 25% that's already added on top of our bill, and sometimes you give us shitty service, then you need to be happy that you have the job that you have. Because let me tell you something, in the profession that I have, if I gave my clients shitty service, I would not be getting paid. Hello? And I think that most of the people out there that are going out places and spending their money agree with me. If they went out places and gave shitty service to the people that they're serving, they would be fired or they would not get their check. So I'm Lorenzo Buttram Hubbard, hashtag I'm Lorenzo Bitch, hashtag the Gay Socialite, hashtag why live anywhere else, hashtag the Frugal Socialite. And I just shared my feelings on tipping with you. Let me know what you think. Check out my website, thegaysocialite.com. Kisses.